John, hi, welcome.
Hello.
Very
Hey
briefly,
Tanya, and you nailed it, John Yeoh. That was the right. That's the easy way to pronounce it.
oh, awesome, thank you. So I'm Tanya Jenkins. I'm the kind of the moderator for this panel today, and I'm really excited to have both of you here. I'm supposed to introduce myself, so I am a nerd who's obsessed with the security of software. And so when they said, "Did you want to moderate this panel?" I did like a little happy dance. So thank you both for being here. Who wants to go first and introduce themselves? John, you win.
Oh, I was going to say Dave, please, but happy to. Hey, my name is John Yeoh. I'm head of research at the Cloud Security Alliance, and what that means is I get to lead a very large think tank of subject matter experts, key stakeholders, and not just cloud, but all next generation technologies. And what we do is we explore use cases, case studies, trying to really create secure guidance and playbooks on how to adopt and deploy technology securely. That's a simple intro.
Yeah, no, that's really great though. David.
David Cass, happy to be here with everyone today. Background wise, fortunate to lead the CISOs Connect, which is really a consortium of CISOs that do a lot of publishing of their experience, how they've implemented different technologies, as well as I'm the CISO for GSR, and we're in the crypto space, and very active, kind of just contributing to the industry in general. Also a fairly nerdy background, Master Science in Engineering from UPenn, as well as a master's from MIT, so I can be as nerdy as you guys want. So happy to be joining you guys today.
Awesome. Thank you both for coming. I really appreciate you being here. Okay, so you get two choices, or one choice. You get to decide, would you like to talk about new trends in cybersecurity or InfoSec for 2023, or would you like to talk about one of the panel discussion topics? So I put them in the chat, but very quickly, they're supply chain security, addressing workforce needs, so trying to hire people in a world where we don't have enough security people to do all the jobs, securing applications, but quickly, securing critical infrastructure. How on earth do we talk to the C-suite and get them engaged? And then identity security, just in general, because that is changing so much with the way technology is changing. John, which one would you like to start with?
Boy, can't we just squish them all together, right? They're just so related. But
if you can do it in your allotted amount of time, I will applaud
it. Dave and I, we're gonna do this all in like 10 minutes, right? Davos is obviously a very busy week this week, and what stands out to me are probably a couple things from there, and we can show how they're complex on their own, but they're also complementary in nature. But the technology partnership thing really stands out to me. So when we look at securing the supply chain, the digital supply chain and physical supply chain, that's listed there. I think that's pretty important. And I think it's even complementary with what we're doing with the workforce and how we're aligning those things with the business. So what I liked about the Cyber Futures agenda is that it reflected this. If you look at our neighbors at the World Economic Forum, they represented these things too, right? So that's what made it really, those two things stand out to me. The pandemic showed us a lot of things, let's be honest, but, sticking with the technology theme, it showed that digitalization is going to be the key component for a business, especially for a modern business that wants to operate, today and going forward. It doesn't just change the way that we operate. If we look at cloud and all the virtual tools that we had to utilize over these last few years, I think it's also changing the way that we grow our businesses, our product sets, our physical products are becoming connected, and we're allowing access to those everywhere. Our products aren't just physical, but they're also digital products. Whether we like it or not, we're creating mobile applications, customer portals. We're moving into different regions, right? So our customer base is expanding, and we have all this international regulation to meet. And so if you look at that digital footprint for an organization, that grows with the business, and aligning these technology risks and the business risks is really what's going to help not just understand how to secure that digital supply chain and the technology supply chain. It's going to help us communicate these things to the C-suite and to the business, and it's going to be enforced by a workforce that can help us do these things. So I think these are the things that kind of stand out to me when I look at the agenda that we have for the cyber futures. When I looked at what's being talked about at the World Economic Forum, is how do we align these needs when it comes to securing the supply chain, when it comes to securing our workforce and building our workforce, especially for us in cybersecurity. We're going to need several of these pieces in order to operate functionally and to secure our business and grow our businesses going forward. So maybe I'm teeing something up for Dave here, but Dave, I'd love to see what you say.
I definitely concur with what you're saying, and I'm going to kind of go for the smush model also, because I think I can, do the rapid fire version of this, because I look at all of the, the topics, and I really think, they're all extremely relevant to what's going on in today's society. And I think, a lot of us are, moving to how we do like the real zero trust, not what the vendors are trying to sell us as zero trust, from that aspect of it. So, supply chain and securing it, I think we've all learned some valuable lessons this past year that clearly has to move away from being a checklist item. And there were lessons in SolarWinds and Excellion and others of, not just doing like vendor due diligence, but even thinking about it if you develop code on your own as part of, your own internal shop, of how you do code signing, how are you making sure that the right repositories are the trusted repositories. So there's a litany of lessons done. And then, really, kudos to the CFF, Tanya, and all the others that are actively helping bring up the next generation of workforce, because I think it's, part of what we have to do as leaders in information security is really help bring up the next generation. And, one of the beautiful things I like about, InfoSec is it's continuous learning. It's kind of age independent. You can be coming straight out of high school, or you can be later in your career and joining it. There's just so many opportunities, to come in and learn something new and really contribute to the community. And then I'd say securing applications at the speed of innovation is something near and dear to my heart, because as GSR is a cloud organization that's also highly algo shop. Everything is code. Infrastructure is code, applications, everything is code now, from that point of view. And I have to figure out, not only how do you do, secure development properly, but how do you get into the whole development tool chain and provide the proper amount of security without really breaking things. So, really, kind of living that whole DevSecOps aspect of it. Securing critical infrastructure also goes hand in hand in that aspect of it. I think, when you look at the fact that, from a US construct, the majority of what's considered critical infrastructure is actually owned by the private sector. So I think there, we need to continue to grow those public-private partnerships, continue to get better about sharing information, and really just continue to do that. I think there's lots of groups that are doing very well in that space, but there's always room for improvement. And then from the the C-suite level, I think it's been clear, especially over the past year or two, not only from guidance published by the SEC and other regulators and like New York DFS, that there's an expectation now coming to the board level that the board has to have decent knowledge of cybersecurity and what the relevant threats are. They don't necessarily have to be experts of it, but they do need to be aware of it, and they need to be able to really ask the right questions. So part of that is the CISO perspective is, how do we help train and our leadership to be asking the right questions from that point of view, to make sure that the risks are addressed and the risks are rising to the right level. So I think we're going to continue to see more and more board engagement from that aspect of it. And then, securing identity, again, that's going to be the whole, what's old is new again. From that point of view, it's kind of like asset management. Organizations, the bigger the organization, almost the more you struggle with some of these basic constructs. I think there's a lot to potentially offer and how we get better at doing identity security, and how, we kind of leverage some of the newer technologies, maybe blockchain as a source of, giving, the individual their ability to really manage their identity. So I think there's a lot more coming and developing that space. So hopefully I did it within my time constraints, but I can go all day on this stuff. So
You know what, I
Actually,
liked what you said too, Dave. You kind of slipped in zero trust there, and we look at, you know, trying to simplify the complexity of technology and security, especially if you're educating workforces, if you're trying to communicate things to the C-suite, to the board. Zero trust can really simplify and summarize a lot of these critical infrastructure, software supply chain, application development issues, because we're looking at key pillars on, you know, what are the critical data points that we're trying to protect? How do you access these things? If you look at the pillars, there's device, networks, all these things that are related to the critical source, the critical asset that we're trying to protect. So if there's a great way to simplify it, zero trust is a concept with principles that we can all kind of understand and follow. And I like how Dave slipped that in there, because I think that's pretty important to understand. I think this year, if we're going to really communicate security and simplify it for everybody else, zero trust is a great way to do that.
So we just have 5 minutes left, and I wanted to ask both of you an extra question that wasn't in the list, and I'm going to give you my answer first. So what is a trend you wish that you could see in 2023? Because the trend I would love to see is companies making it, like, spending time on improving the process so that they can ship bug fixes faster. This might sound ridiculous, but one of my friends called me 2 weeks ago and told me that she found merge requests from me in 2021 at a client site, and they still hadn't put my bug fixes in. And so they're like, yeah, we fixed those security bugs. I'm like, no, you didn't push it to prod. It's not actually fixed. Oh no. And their biggest threat sometimes is that they just can't actually get the fixes out in a reasonable amount of time. So that's my wish for this year. Could both of you tell me a wish, like a trend you wish would happen?
Who'd like to go first? I do have something in the chamber there, Dave.
Well,
okay, if you'd like to lead off, great.
I have a few things, but just kind of playing off of what Tanya had mentioned too. I think change management, and we're talking about supply chain change management, I think that's huge, right? Especially when you look at, you know, vulnerabilities and exposures, you know, deep into, you know, cloud infrastructure, that as you build your own applications onto these things, so many vulnerabilities that can happen at the top of the supply chain can impact how customers operate, you know, downstream. And so I think that's a really important piece to see. And I think the CVE world is really cool what we do there too. When we look at identifying vulnerabilities that are software that's customer owned. In today's services world, we don't own everything. And so we need to understand also what our technology partners own and what vulnerabilities they're patching. And then it goes into how we configure things. You know, everybody talks about misconfigurations as being one of the biggest exploits that we've had lately. And then that's just it. If we can understand change configuration better, if we can communicate downstream all, you know, how these are impacting our applications and our customer environments, I think that's going to be a huge way in how not only do we continue to increase how we use and adopt cloud computing, but it's going to help us operate securely, faster, and better. And so, Dave.
Yeah, for me, I kind of have two things. I would say, like, to continue to make significant strides in the you know, true secure SDLC. It's one of those things that looks great on paper, but is really tough to get right, especially when you're doing it at speed. So I'd say room for significant improvement there, and then kind of continued improvement on how do we raise the bar from, you know, training awareness. I mean, the phishing, smishing attacks have really gotten really good, and it's training awareness is kind of like the unsung hero of how do you deliver that right message to the constituents, to the company, the right number of times where you're not irritating everybody, but you're raising the bar, you know, from that aspect of it, just to continue to protect the organizations. Because these attacks have gotten really, really good, and they just continue to persist because they work so well. So I'd say those are probably my top two.
All of those were great. And I am adding those to my list of wishes for 2023. I find it interesting how a lot of us, like, will make New Year's resolutions. And I think the three of us are making resolutions we want everyone else to take up as well. So thank you both so much for being on. I really appreciate all that you are doing. And thank you for being on this panel.